en Ankara, en Turquía. Mientras tanto, nosotros no podemos perder el foco, por supuesto, del mercado cripto, y vamos a poner el foco en los próximos minutos en FTX, en otras exchanges que ahora mismo estén en la cuerda floja, puedan estar en la cuerda floja, que estén en el punto de mira, como son crypto.com o AAX, y vamos a analizar todos los escenarios posibles. De hecho, contamos ya con nosotros a nuestro siguiente invitado, es Michael Eerhart, Head of Strategy at Skynet Trading. Michael, thank you so much for having us a few minutes. Good afternoon from Spain.
Hi, Marta. Good afternoon.
Michael, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies remained under pressure today and all the weekend following last week's collapse of crypto exchange FTX. What really gone wrong with this exchange? Haven't there been enough audits? Has trust in crypto business been completely broken? Which is your vision?
Right. So I think a lot of things went wrong, and it started quite a while ago. FTX, just a little bit of background, was one of the larger exchanges that operated within the crypto space, founded by the 29-year-old in the US. They're incorporated in the Bahamas. So what essentially happened is that it turned out that they were using funds that clients deposited on the platform to actually do proprietary trading. So they traded. They bought certain assets and they bought certain cryptocurrencies without essentially disclosing this to their clients. For this, they used the funds that clients deposited on the platform to essentially trade for themselves. What happened though is that these trades were essentially not profitable, so they lost a lot of money off their clients, and this left a giant hole in the books of the company. Which essentially meant that they couldn't pay the customers when they wanted to withdraw anymore. This has been going on for quite a while, probably started back in May when there was another big collapse in the crypto ecosystem following the Luna ecosystem collapse, where some of the major cryptocurrency firms such as Three Arrows Capital went bankrupt. It's likely that the firms involved, so FTX and Alameda, were exposed here as well, and they had outstanding debt there. It's very likely that FTX tried to essentially fill this debt hole by providing capital to Alameda Research, which was their venture arm. But in doing so, they basically created a very large problem for themselves that they now couldn't cover anymore. What happened was that CZ is the CEO of Binance.com, hinted at this early last week, and from there it really spiraled out of control. We saw over the course of Monday that withdrawals from FTX.com, so that users could no longer take funds from the platform anymore. The withdrawals were paused, following which a lot of events happened very closely on one another. First being that that funds, or essentially that FTX was trying to raise funds to close this hole, so to say. This was unsuccessful, both by Binance and by other parties that potentially showed interest in this. But after trying to raise funds, they found out that the size of the funds needed amounted to more or less $8 to $10 billion, and this was simply not possible to be raised. So following that, on Wednesday, I think, or on Thursday, FTX declared for bankruptcy, which then triggered, of course, a whole cycle of downwards price pressure on Bitcoin and also other cryptocurrencies. We've also seen quite a few events following that, which, are not necessarily something we'd like to see in the industry. We've seen, for example, that certain regions in the world were actually able to access their funds on FTX, whereas other regions were not. This particular region being the Bahamas, where also FTX is located. So what we had was essentially during the period of a day, people from the Bahamas could access their funds, but the rest of the world was essentially unable to. This has caused a lot of controversy in the industry because this meant that some people were able to access their funds while others essentially had their funds stuck. In general, the whole situation has created a lot of problems for the industry, simply because a lot of larger players were either actively trading on FTX.com, or they had investments that were basically denominated in currencies given out by FTX.com. So FTX and Alameda were very large in the Solana ecosystem, for one, where they were essentially one of the larger investors in most of the projects there. Yeah, and this has caused a lot of problems, particularly for the major players in the Solana ecosystem, because the FTX and Alameda got a lot of tokens in all of these projects. And what they're essentially doing right now is, because they have triggered the bankruptcy clause in the United States, is that they're liquidating these funds, which of course has a very negative impact on the price of all of these projects. On top of that, it's going to be very interesting to see what's happening in the next couple of weeks, because we essentially don't know the scope and scale of other parties being involved in this ecosystem. So we are hearing rumors about other exchanges being either insolvent or having some sort of exposure to the FTX exchange. So this could be that there are funds on there. So for example, you see several exchanges that also have transactions, large transactions with FTX.com, which you can all track on chain, of course. And this has caused questions whether or not these exchanges were involved with FTX.com. And if this is the case, then we may see other parties also being exposed in this scandal. In general, I would say it's not a very good thing for the crypto markets that this is possible. Although, of course, these activities are not necessarily inherent to the crypto space itself, but these are more criminal activities related to individuals taking way too much risk with the funds of users on the platform, which essentially can happen in any industry, and which we've seen a lot in other industries. So yeah, it's been a very rough week, so I would say.
Rough week indeed. Elon Musk says Bitcoin will get over it, but it will be, according him, a long winter. Has trust been broken only in those companies poorly managed, or do you think this trust has been broken in all cryptocurrencies?
Right. I would definitely say that this is more of a company or companies specific issue. So not necessarily something that is crypto wide, although it is of course very sad to see this happening in the industry. At the same time, I don't think this has caused a lasting trust issue within the cryptocurrency industry. What we have seen is essentially a problem of centralized parties doing traditional malpractices, so to say, which is specifically one of the things that cryptocurrency is actually trying to solve, right? We're all for transparency and openness, a decentralized financial system and a decentralized financial world. And the issues that we're now seeing are really centralized exchanges and centralized parties taking excessive risk with other people's funds. So if you look at the broader cryptocurrency landscape, I would say that this is actually a strong signal that the decentralized financial systems that we are building are actually very necessary.
And meanwhile, we see more and more cryptocurrency naysayers throwing "I told you so" messages. What do you think about it?
Right. Yeah, no, of course, you always get that in these kind of situations. For myself, this has been, I think, the third bear market cycle that I've been involved in. And every time a bear market essentially occurs, you see the same rhetoric being thrown around where, you know, you need regulation, you need, it's all unsafe, people are hacked, people, you know, lose their money. But at the same time, I think every major negative event in the industry essentially showcases the need for cryptocurrencies as well. As I just mentioned, the issues that we're now facing surrounding FTX are really a centralized problem. So I think if you look at it from that point of view, the decentralized aspects of cryptocurrency are shown to be more important than ever. At the same time, I do feel that there is a need for more transparency from centralized actors. And we also see the move towards this from the centralized actors themselves. For example, Binance proposing the proof of funds initiative using Merkle tree proofs, which I think is very good. At the same time, I think a lot more here can be done, because what we've now seen is that centralized parties have taken on a lot of liabilities. And I think as the cryptocurrency ecosystem grows, we need to have insights in these things as well, to make sure that everything is, you know, by the books, so to say. So I do feel that regulation to some extent here is necessary and perhaps even good, and it's likely to be coming as well. But I also see that the decentralized aspect of cryptocurrencies are more important than ever.
You mentioned this regulation, and at G20, Binance CEO is calling for more regulation. How do you combine a regulation that protects users and technological innovation in finance?
Right. I think these things actually go very well hand in hand. And if you look at the view, for example, that Binance is taking, I would say, are doing it quite well. So what they're doing is, of course, the KYC and AML procedures that you need in any kind of financial transaction. They perform those, but then at the same time, I think the regulation should also really be on the centralized companies' side, where we should have knowledge and should be able to track essentially what is happening with our funds, so that events like these with FTX are not possible, because FTX was using funds deposited by users for their own purposes and were taking risk with those funds where that really shouldn't have been possible. So I think on that front, regulation is really important. It's also one of the things that changed after the 2008 financial crisis in regular investment banks, where they actually had to provide a lot more transparency and put some sort of a big wall between different sides of the businesses. And I think this is actually very important in a cryptocurrency space on the centralized exchanges as well, where there is really a clear separation between the funds of the users that want to trade on the platform and the exchange's personal funds that they can use however they wish. But this separation should be very clear, and it should always be possible for users to withdraw their funds. And I think regulation should aim to achieve that.
Thank you so much, Michael Eerhart, Head of Strategy at Skynet Trading. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Marta. Have a good day.
Nosotros, por tanto, nos quedamos con estas claves.